Are you trying to scrub your screen so we
I
can
was
see
just making sure my little camera was. I got
Hi, Jennifer.
some
Thank
paw
you so
prints.
much. There was a paw print.
Well, my paw prints
Okay, okay.
from
Well,
opening and closing the computer.
right, but I mean, who knows whose paw print it could be over
This
there? It
is
could
true.
be,
We have multiple suspects.
yes. Yeah. So this podcast is really you and I just kicking off a conversation, as we have been for over a year now, to support parents of gifted and twice exceptional kids and to help them just understand their children a bit more, to know they're not alone, have a sense of belonging. You and I have both either taught or parented or both interesting people. Maybe we're interesting people too. Maybe that's why we're good friends. Maybe we're like mutually one of the few people in this world who actually can tolerate people like ourselves.
This is true.
And more than tolerate, really enjoy. Sometimes, I think if you sense that you're a bit much, then you often feel like people are mostly tolerating you. And when you find somebody who really seems to love you for who you are, it's a really special thing. And I feel that way about you, Jennifer.
Yeah, and I was thinking about one thing that I want to, well, one thing of many that I want to give you accolades for is really like the amount of time that you put in. And I don't even know all of the things that you have done to really just continue to grow and learn and, better yourself and for yourself, but also for your family. And I've seen this kind of evolution in you and things that you've shared and how you've shifted and adapted and shared ideas with me as well as the parents that we have served over the past year. And I just want to tell you that I'm proud of you because that's not easy for someone to do. And that you have taken the time and really the passion to better understand yourself and how to serve yourself, your family, and then the parents that we have as well. So I just wanted to give you that accolade. That was something that really kept coming to the surface in what I've seen in you.
Oh, Jennifer, thank you. That means a lot. That means a lot to really be seen for all of that work goes, like you said, that goes on in the interior. Um, and I think it's a privilege, right, to have been challenged by the people in my family so that without them, I would not have been forced to come face to face with my shortcomings and my, all of my really ego driven um, self protection and other protection mechanisms. They're really coming from a good place, but it was not making things better, paradoxically enough, right?
Right.
And without our interesting children, a gift from God, like I would never have been forced to really look in the mirror in a different way and fully acknowledge the things that had to change in me so that our home could be a better place. And I'm really grateful for them and grateful to have met you along that journey and to have you be a big part of my life and be able to share these stories with each other, privately. Some of
Yeah.
them may come into this forum. Some of them, should stay private, are private. Um, so I just want to say thank you for seeing that. And me, likewise, you were the first person to really acknowledge in that very public forum in our gifted, advisory committee what it was like to try to serve the students in a setting that was really not designed to have their interests first and foremost. It was people being people and systems protecting themselves and acting the way systems should, but the interest of the students was not being put, front and center, and you were courageous. You stopped playing the game and you just were, look, this has to end, and you called the ball. And that takes so much courage to do. And I know from our many conversations after that time that you've been on, a similar sort of journey to really understand how to best serve children and your own family. And it just starts really close to home, doesn't it?
It does. It does. Yeah, and for the majority of my career, life, I was single. I mean, had dated people, but didn't have a family, didn't have a child of my own, and really put all my efforts into other people's children and families, and loved that. I mean, kids are definitely my passion. So kind of when I see injustice, like you had just mentioned about the systems and them not really truly focusing on the child and what's best for the kids, it just really pulls at my heart. And I have to speak up because that's really, those are, I mean, the most innocent, the most amazing is the kids. So we just always have to make sure that we keep them at the forefront. And, I've learned a lot about, like we've talked about myself too, in marriage, in getting back into faith and having a child of my own, and just really, looking back to the past, but then also to the present as well as the future, and and how to make it better, right? Always trying to improve, always trying to figure it out. And also too having to kind of check yourself and say everything is okay. Like, yeah, there's room for improvement, but when you look at the big picture, like, we're alive, we're healthy. I mean, we have families, which we are grateful for, but you just kind of always want to do the best that you can by them and for yourself. So oftentimes you might get lost in that. So really finding that balance and keeping the balance is a difficult thing, but kids have always been my passion. They're the best. I mean, they are open-minded and pure and innocent and knowledge seekers, questioners,
Disruptors.
disruptors, exactly. All of the things that I just love about them, and don't ever want to try to take those things away from them, because I think those are such valuable things to have within them that they're born with.
Right, right. I was thinking about what is it that we're trying to do together, you and I, and why have a podcast? There's a bazillion podcasts out there, and I think it's motivated by a couple of things. One is we've got this heart to serve. We have a desire to share what we've learned over the years. And you'll have to introduce yourself, Jennifer, so folks know what experience you're bringing. But we both have our own experiences, both professionally and personally, to offer to people as an immediate resource. But we also have this great group that we facilitate for SENG, Supporting the Emotional Needs of the Gifted. So SENG, if anyone is listening and wants to look that up. We are both co-facilitators, and we've had the great joy and privilege of hosting 4 cohorts last year, and we're hosting more this year. And we've always kind of wanted to offer resources beyond just the 90 minutes that we have with people, because those groups could always go on. And we have so many resources we share in print and so many links and so many things, it's almost overwhelming. And so why not create a space where we can maybe focus on just one thing per conversation, offer one thing, maybe from research or a new study that comes out, or a topic that came up, or a challenge from one of our cohorts. We'll just dig into it. Because in our groups, we really aren't talking. In our groups, it's the parents who are talking and sharing resources and that great sense of belonging and that life-changing connection with each other. But you and I, we both know, have a ton to say. So we needed to park ourselves in a separate space where it's the two of us. So
Yeah.
that's kind of what's motivating this foray into the podcasting world, I guess. What would you add to that?
Yeah, I agree. When we do have those groups, it is a lot of us facilitating the conversations, and it's such a powerful piece to watch, to sit back and guide the parents as they get to know each other, become vulnerable in sharing what's going on in their households, what's going on at their schools, how their children are or are not being supported as twice exceptional students and children in their houses. And just this beautiful kind of relationship that's being built across. And, we're talking about people in various states. Sometimes we've had people from other countries dip in. So you just kind of always see that common thread that parents are trying to do the best that they can for their children. And so for us to be able to create that platform for them to share and be vulnerable and to really support each other, it's beautiful to listen to. It's beautiful to watch. It's beautiful to praise them, to remind them that they are their children's biggest advocates. To hear them talk about how they don't want to step over any boundaries at school, and they know the teachers are busy, and just reminding them like no one knows your child better than you do, and you are their biggest advocate. So don't hesitate to, teachers are busy, administrators are busy. Be that squeaky wheel for your child, because you are their biggest advocate. So it's just been a beautiful experience, and it's nice to see the different dynamics of the different groups. We had one group where it was husbands and wives, mothers and fathers that got on board, and I think that by far has kind of been the most interesting conversations around their kids, just to be able to see both sides of it. But them just really, what you start to see is then they are starting to reflect on their own personal journey in education, and have some kind of aha moments of like, oh, well, the apple doesn't fall so far from the tree. And I can look back and I can remember that this is what my educational experiences was as I talk about my child. So just really kind of what we talked about at the beginning, and giving you praise for is that self-awareness of where have I been and how has my journey impacted what's happening with my child and how I'm parenting that child. And how I'm meeting the needs of my children. So I love to see that happen, to see that unfold, and give them that platform to be able to just support each other and share with each other, and feel a safe place. I think the saddest thing is when you hear parents say, we feel alone. I feel like we're the only family, that this is happening to. We haven't been able to find our people, and they feel kind of defeated and not being able, or feeling like they're not serving their children. So that to me is a great turnaround when you start to see them get excited about reflecting on the week before and what we talked about and what we discussed and how they implemented in their families. And, I really like how so-and-so said this, that really resonated with me. So it's just building a community. And I mean, even from the beginning of when I, became a teacher and started taking classes to become an administrator, just the bottom line is building relationships with people, whether it's other parents or your children or, people that you oversee or you serve. That is, I think, the foundational platform for anything, is once people can trust you and know that you truly care about them, not just professionally, but personally as well. The sky's the limit. I mean, they will listen and go wherever, you need them to go. But I think that is just such a core fundamental piece is building relationships with people.
That's such a good segue, Jennifer, because you are a teacher. And I was just thinking while you were mentioning that, building relationships, it is not easy to be a teacher with a large classroom, and that kind of honest, genuine relationship with families, with parents, has got to be so challenging. Would you share with people your background, and maybe, I know you've had a couple examples of really making an impact one-on-one with kids.
Sure. Yeah, I kind of knew since middle school, or back in my day, it was called junior high, that I wanted to be a teacher. We had a job fair, and at the end of the day, they had all these different people there learning about different careers. And at the end of the day, I remember on the loudspeaker over the school, they were just like, what do you want to do? Where do you want to go? What do you want to be? And I just was like, well, they're asking this question. I need to have an answer to it. And I just remember going home and kind of like brainstorming in my head of like, what do I love to do? And I had 2 young kids that lived next door to me, and I babysat them all the time and really did like lessons with them and taught them. And I just was like, I want to be a teacher. So I knew from 7th grade on, that's what I wanted to do. Went through high school. When I started looking at colleges, the only school that I really looked at and applied for was Longwood, just because I knew they were such a good school for educators. And that's where I went and loved it.
That's out in Farmville?
Farmville, Virginia. Yeah.
That's a cute place.
Yeah, I love it. I love that place. It's grown a lot since I've been there. But I'm glad I went when I did, because I don't know if I'd ever experienced that kind of Farmville environment, but it's very built up now. A lot more stores and restaurants and that type of thing versus, really back to building relationships, right? Like being with each other and getting to know each other and hanging out with each other and learning. That was a big aha moment where I learned a lot about other people my age and what experiences they had had in their lives, and really a big understanding of unconditional love, which I feel that I had from my parents growing up, and just that I could trust them. And hearing other students talk about experiences that they had with their parents, I was like, your parents said that to you, or they did that? Like what? And just really being grateful for the way that I was raised, and just Navy family, middle class, but just really appreciated that I knew I could trust my parents, and that they were protecting me from whatever, or helping me, supporting me. And so after college, I never thought I would teach middle school. I always thought I'd teach elementary. My certification was K through 8 and nursery school K through 8, and taught fourth grade for half a year because of the way that it overlapped with student teaching, and loved that. But was low man on the totem pole because it was kind of like an overcrowding situation, and didn't have a job. Summertime came, and I was like, I need to have a job. I was living at home with my parents after college, and so there were openings in middle school, and so I wrote cover letters for every school that had an opening, put my resume behind each one, hand delivered 20, 30 applications or resumes to all the different schools, and got a couple interviews, but landed. And I was like, well, middle school has openings, so I'm just going to go ahead and apply. And I think, we talk a lot about faith as well, that God has his way of kind of creating that path that you're going to be going on. And I think I was interviewed for a seventh grade social studies position, but ended up getting a seventh grade life science position. And the area that we live in, Virginia Beach, is super close to the Chesapeake Bay, which I fell in love with through teaching, and shared with my students and learned alongside my students. So oyster restoration projects, canoe trips, 3-day, 2-night island trips out to the Chesapeake Bay, where it's really, being outside and being in nature and how important that is. But did that for 13 and a half years, and just loved it. Did it in seventh grade, and then went to Kemp's Landing Magnet School, which is a gifted school in our school system. That's no longer called that. It's kind of merged with the elementary school, and it's ODS now, or ODC, ODS. And taught sixth grade instead of seventh grade, but still the same subject of life science, and really found in that sixth grade a pivotal need for supporting them as they transition to a really big step in their lives. Just kind of deer in headlights. A lot of changes for these sixth graders who, are 11 years old, came from schools where they were the shining star among all of them, to a gifted school where now they're, everybody's a big fish here. So how do I fit in there? I'm riding the bus with eighth graders. My bus ride is much longer because I'm being moved to a school that's further away.
So at that time, just to situate the
Yeah.
listener, they're shifting not only from elementary into middle school, but they're also going from a neighborhood school into a magnet school for gifted.
Yes.
So it's kind of a double transition. Okay.
Yep. So had to apply. They had to apply. They had to be accepted. So this is a big deal for them, right? A big deal for their families. And just middle school transition in that as well. I mean, lockers. They were terrified of lockers. Changing out for,
Right, forgetting the combination.
yeah. I mean, some kids were
Yeah, I
afraid.
remember being nervous about that. I'm going to be standing there for a whole minute, everyone watching me while I sweat trying to get into my.
And the funny thing about Kemp's Landing is they didn't even have locks on their lockers. Because they had the honor system, so they were like, we don't need locks. Everybody kind of takes care of each other and wouldn't, do anything like that. They were real big on the honor code. But then it was kind of disservice to them in sixth grade, because when they were in eighth grade and they were going to high school, they didn't know how to do a combination lock.
Okay.
So the guidance counselor would actually have with the eighth grade students, like, full on boxes of these locks that they would sit there and practice, because you don't want to be a ninth grader standing,
Right.
in the hallway, let alone a sixth grader. So just funny stuff like that. But Yeah, those kids, I remember my first day teaching at that gifted school, and I'm like, are these kids going to be smarter than me? Like, am I going to be able to even teach them? Like, what are they going to come in and, what is this going to be all about? And just met some of the most amazing kids, the most amazing parents. Would take birding trips with some of them. Like on the weekend, we would go just again back to building relationships. And I remember a time sitting in my classroom, and it was around like progress report time, and the principal said, you need to call all of your parents, or parents if you have an issue or if there's something going on in school. And I just remember feeling like terrified to pick up the phone and call a parent, like what are they going to say? What are they going to do? And I just, as I hung up the phone with each one of them, it was like, wow, that felt really good. I got to learn more about what's behind the kid, that family that's behind the kid. And again, it's the best thing that you can do is build relationships. So teaching at that school, I had to get my gifted endorsement, and they had a program with the school system through the University of Virginia at one of their satellite programs here in Virginia Beach. Just really enjoyed being back in the classroom, collaborating with other educators. And so after I got my gifted endorsement and was still teaching at Kemp's Landing through that same UVA program, earned my leadership and administration master's degree. And so just really thought about what I could earn to kind of open more doors, what path I was going to, really where God was going to be taking me next. So felt that was a good opportunity to really think about, like, instead of being a piece of the chess game, you're actually kind of like looking bird's eye view at the chess board and trying to figure out like where pieces are moving and how you can best create those pathways for those pieces to move, but always still staying, on the board as well when you needed to. So after Kemp's Landing for, I think, 7 years I was there, I became an administrator and was the coordinator for the International Baccalaureate Middle Years program at Plaza Middle. Again, just great opportunity to meet parents and kids, learn an international kind of lens to education, which was really great. Tying in, empathy with others and service into the curriculum, which I was already doing at Kemp's Landing. Just was kind of a natural fit. And when I was at Kemp's Landing, I ended up volunteering for a global nonprofit organization through one of the grandsons of the founders, the co-founders, Operation Smile, and just really felt passionate about it, that I needed to get involved. I needed my students to get involved. And so trained with them to be a mission sponsor and took kids to, my first trip was to India. So we were there for 12 days was the entire trip, but we did surgeries on kids with cleft lips and cleft palates. And these high school kids were able to go into the operating room. They were able to build relationships with the patients and their families before and after surgery, calm the kids down, bring stickers and games, and, just run around with them to kind of ease their minds that were getting ready to go into surgery. So that was such a beautiful international piece to meet doctors from all over the world, nurses, child life specialists, speech pathologists. Not only did we work with the people in country, but then also you had an international volunteer team that came in, and it was just a really cool thing. And ultimately, you're changing the life of a child. So that was awesome. And so I had the opportunity when I was at Plaza. Never really thought I'd leave the school system. Thought that that's where I was supposed to be. But an opening came at Operation Smile for Associate Vice President of Student Programs, so to really oversee the whole student programs globally. And so I took that position and had that position for 6.5 years and got to work with elementary, middle school, high school, into the university. So have really had experience with all the grade levels and all the kind of developmental levels of kids and where they are in those different times and how their brains are developing and what their needs are and how best to support them. So I feel really honored that I've been able to kind of dip into each one of those because, as a mother of, young men, it's there's a lot that happens along each one of those periods. So I feel good now that I have my daughter who's 5.5 that I kind of like have seen what that looks like. I mean, every kid's different, but I feel blessed to kind of have that knowledge of where their brains are at those different levels and how to best support them.
So you've
But
been an educator, an administrator, a gifted teacher. You have your gifted endorsement. You have a master's in education, right?
yep,
With that gifted endorsement, and your master's is in leadership. Is that right?
yep, leadership and administration.
Yeah. And so you've been an administrator as well, and you've also worked in Operation Smile as a nonprofit. Is that
Nonprofit,
correct?
yep,
Okay.
yep.
And so two different lenses really on students and how they function in the world, in the classroom, but also in like the real world and in a really unique service like setting.
Yeah,
Where
yeah,
they're out of their comfort zone completely. You've gotten a chance to see that too, and it really strikes me that you've been following your heart and curiosity, and responding to the prompts in front of you.
right.
Like, here's this interesting opportunity. Should I go for it? Seems like I should.
Yeah.
What do you think about you has allowed you to step into these different roles with curiosity?
I think just keep it, I think what you just said is, I'd kind of feel this like 3, 4 year itch, right? Where, I mean, my best friend, I met her my first year of teaching at Corporate Landing Middle. She's still teaching at Corporate Landing Middle. She's going to retire from teaching the same subject at Corporate Landing Middle. So I mean, and that's how some people, are content in that. And I mean, she's impacting kids and she's at the same school, but I just look back and think about like all of the shifts and turns and pivots and things that I've done over the past, almost 30 years, and just all the kind of tools that I've been able to gain in my toolbox in taking those different paths. But I remember it's just, and it just always kind of searching like what's next, like even though kids are always going to drive that passion, but like how can I serve, on at a different place or, in a different capacity. And so I was at Corporate Landing and just remember I always kind of like scanned what jobs were out there, and this Kemp's Landing one came up and I was like, still teaching the subject because I didn't want to give up teaching what I loved. And that came up, and then it's like, well, you had to get your gifted endorsement in order to continue teaching there. So loved being in the classroom. Then I was like, well, what else can I do? And they had the administrative. So it's really just kind of listening to opportunities that are out there. And I think sometimes people get hung up on if they're like, I do remember when I was getting my leadership in administration and I was at Kemp's Landing, like what was next for me? What principal was I going to be? What assistant principal was I going to be? And I remember interviewing for elementary principalships and like they weren't calling me back. I didn't get it. I hadn't been in the elementary world for a while, so didn't know all the curriculum names and that type of thing. So I got kind of upset with myself, like what could I have done better? And they don't give you any feedback of like, this is what you could have done better. And I really just was like, and I mean, I called people from downtown and like mock interviewed with them to make sure that I knew everything, and truly believe like God has a plan, and that wasn't it. That was my practice for interviewing, but then I fell into the MYP coordinator position, and that was like perfect fit, right? Like still middle school, still administrator, global. And then from that global job, still focused on kids, I went to Operation Smile, which was global. So I think everything's kind of built on itself. And I know some people might shut down after the first fail or, no, or you're not getting called back. But I really just take it as an opportunity to be like, okay, how could I have done different? What could I have done differently? And again, I'm kind of shooting in the dark because they don't give you feedback, but that obviously wasn't the right place for me to be. And so you just wait for that right opportunity to come along. And yeah, I just kind of start to feel myself like idling. And even going from Corporate Landing to Kemp's Landing, it's like, it's a new school building. It's a new copy room. It's a new copy machine. It's different people that you're learning about. It's a different drive to work. So all those things are just kind of like, I don't know, just, different, kind of resetting your nervous system, right? Like different path. I'm going to take this path instead of take this path. But I mean, I can't imagine over the past 30 years driving to the same school parking in the same spot. I'm not that much of a creature of habit, I guess, and just wanting to push myself. And I know you probably can agree with me on that
Well,
with
it's
your
funny. I think we're
pathway.
like paradoxes, right? I mean, in many ways, creature of habit, eating
Yeah.
similar things because I know it will regulate my nervous system, but other things, not a creature of habit. So I think like we all have a unique blend, but I think what parents find reassuring about listening to you, and they don't get to hear you too much in our groups, but if any parent were to tune into this podcast would find interesting and reassuring is many of the parents who join our same groups are very interesting, very intelligent, just like their kids.
Yep.
And they have different inflection points in their lives where they're trying to figure out what should I do now? What can I do? I want to work. I'm trained. I'm a professional. But my kids also clearly need my focus and attention. My kids clearly need me to not be investing 100% of my time at work. Like they need some attention. The school is going to need some advocacy. We're going to have to work on some things to get the fit to be right. I can't be working full time and doing that, or I don't know how I'm going to do it. And so just listening to your story about the different pivots and the different prompts that you've heard and how your faith has played a role in paying attention to, okay, what's really important right now?
Yeah.
I think parents would find really reassuring that you can do this multiple times throughout your life. You can reinvent yourself and listen to, your internal compass, your higher coach, your faith, your God. For us, it's our God that is giving us inspiration through the Holy Spirit and messages about what's important now, and the children being, the kind of the North Star for you.
Yeah.
And now you have a child at home, and your life has taken another pivot because you're now homeschooling.
Yeah.
And raising crazy turkeys and rescuing them from the
Yeah.
water
So
behind your house.
I'm an official. Never thought this would be on my resume, but I'm a chicken farmer. Yeah, we've got 57 chickens right now. We actually have some guys outside building a new chicken coop for us. It's the Taj Mahal of chicken coop. Looking to increase the flock, but yeah, we babysat some turkeys. We don't have any current on the property, but we will be getting some baby turkeys this spring. I'm working with 3 separate preschools on their hatchery program. So they incubate the eggs and the kids get to learn about life cycles and chickens. And so we ultimately could have 36 new baby chickens after they are done with them in the schools. We just adopted 2 new kittens. I don't know if I told you that or not yet.
Yes, you did, yeah.
Yep. So we got 2 new kittens. We have 4 dogs. I've always loved animals. I have animals in my classroom, but my daughter, who's 5.5, is, she's known probably since she was 3 that she wants to be a veterinarian. And so, what better way to study animals than to have them around you all the time? And, on a farm, things can happen quick.
Yes.
We just had the frozen water out on the pond. This was last Monday, and one of our Anatolian shepherds, who weighs 150 pounds, as it's been frozen, has been going out on the ice to check out what's going out on the road, and decided he was going to do it as it was melting, and he got stuck in the ice. So I'll have to send you a video. My husband actually gets on my daughter's kayak and belly slides across the pond
Nice.
to get the dog out of the ice. So he's got the paddle and he's scooting the dog out, and then he flips over. So he does the polar plunge with the dog.
Oh my gosh.
And that was all before 9 o'clock in the morning. I mean,
That's great. That's another STEM activity right there.
oh, yes.
How do we figure this out?
Yeah. So, yeah, I miss and one thing, us doing these calls with the parents, it really fills my cup to, get back involved with parents and just really, empowering them to know that they are doing well by their kids and doing a great job, and just to keep going and to keep listening. Like we just talked about, that kind of internal voice of what do I need to do and how do I need to pivot and what it might look like. And she started preschool, and just the more that you see what's going on in the public school setting, and knowing what kind of teacher I was, and knowing that not all teachers are as involved as I am or as compassionate as I was. I've had and I feel like, again, God has given me all of these experiences to be able to give her what she has now. And, it's not right for everybody. Homeschooling's not right for everybody. But for right now, we feel like it's the best thing that she can, just explore her interest and still learn her basics in academics. But just have the freedom to be a critical thinker and think outside of the box, and love on animals as well throughout the day. That's the career path that she's going to continue down. So yeah, so 5.5 years old, been home for 5.5 years now with her, as a homeschool mom and a chicken farmer. But enough about me, Allie.
Well, you know what I'm thinking is the next time we meet together, we can explore my story a little bit.
Okay.
And what I thought we should do is kind of wrap this one up with
Sure.
if the listener has stuck around with us to this point, which I
Yeah.
hope they did, then what can they expect from these conversations going forward? And I'm totally working off the cuff here.
Yeah.
So, listeners, please forgive me for speaking extemporaneously, but our purpose here is to bring relationship, as you mentioned, Jennifer, being the number one thing, relationship, with our stories and with the people we meet and the families that we've served and some of the anecdotes that we've heard, and just offer encouragement, a place of belonging for families who are raising intense, intelligent, sensitive children. Children who have been identified by the school system as maybe gifted and ADHD or autistic or OCD. This is the twice exceptional profile, the 2E profile. So gifted 2E families are, primarily those who are coming to us. They're finding their way to us. But I've spoken often publicly about the real challenge I have with the gifted label, because the tests that are being used in the schools are not very good at picking up those kids. So any parent who is raising a challenging, intense, stubborn, intelligent,
Disruptor.
disruptor, kids who can be very reactive, maybe very emotional, maybe have big questions, existential concerns, have difficulty with transitioning from thing to thing. That kind of a profile would be this place would be home for a
Yeah.
parent who's raising somebody who's really challenging. I talk to a lot of these folks often. They come across my path. They're not labeled as gifted by the school system. These are just parents who are like really struggling and feeling very badly about themselves and very badly about their own ability to self-regulate, because the kids are so frustrating and the parents are also working and they have no time for themselves and just a lot of stress. And when I listen to their stories and I listen to what's going on at home, it's clear that the child is very likely highly intelligent and school is a bad fit, causing a lot of stress during the day, and all that stress is piling on at home. It's leaking out at home. And, Jennifer, you know this very well. You work with enough people, you see enough people, hear enough stories. Like, it's not hard to pick up the patterns and to just recognize that, like you mentioned, public school is having a hard time meeting needs. So I think what I would love for people to find here is a vast array of resources and experiences that we can offer, things that you've done in your classroom, I've done with my own family, and just personal experience. We're both curious creatures and disruptors of our own right, and so I think that this will be a place to offer that family of an interesting person just some refuge.
Yeah.
And ideas and strategies and resources.
Yeah, and kind of, as we were talking about making this happen, just a couple of the topics that I thought about, kind of like what you just said, where they're being labeled as ADHD, and not getting that gifted, was the book that you brought forward on misdiagnosis, and, that these professionals who are running these tests to diagnose things such as ADHD don't understand what the gifted traits are as well, and that oftentimes they really overlap with each other. I think that's really important for parents to understand in future conversations. We've talked about like neuroscience and neurosculpting, the diet, the gut health, how important that is. Emotional regulation is huge for everyone in the family. And then just something that I've really visited on homeschooling is just kind of that intentional learning, right? Like kind of slowing down what you're doing and really thinking about how this experience, whether it's at the grocery store,
Yes.
or cooking in the kitchen, or
Yeah.
whatever it might be, is a teachable moment. And
Relationship building.
instead of that kind of like rush, 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 rush,
Right.
we gotta go, which you find yourself in a lot of times if you are, packing those lunches and getting them in the car, getting them on the bus, and they're playing sports, and, it's just then they're coming home and they're doing homework. Like, just slowing all of that down and just saying, is this really important right now? And what is the teachable moment in this experience? And how to model that for our kids is something that I've continued to kind of work on with homeschooling and having her with me, pretty much 24/7. So those are all kind of topics, and there's many more, as you've said, that we will dip
Oh, yeah.
into.
We
But
never have a shortage of topics
nope,
or opinions.
nope. The things
Yeah.
to chat about.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And I guess we would welcome topics that people want to bring
Yeah.
to this. And so, if this is of interest to you, please drop us a comment and reach out to us, and we will put in the show notes how to find us. But our next group, Supporting the Emotional Needs of the Gifted, starts on March 10th, and it lasts 6 weeks. So, starting March 10th at noon Eastern, and it's 90 minutes per session. We are there with between 7 and 14 participants usually. We welcome the spouses or partners, no
Yeah.
extra charge for that. Bring the spouse or partner. That was so much fun.
Yeah.
That was so interesting because definitely mom and dad or spouse and partner have different views on
Yeah.
what's going on in the family, as they should. And it was really a wonderful thing to hear them support each other, and especially going, to meetings at the school, just how they can provide support to each other, because it's so hard sometimes for parents to feel like they can advocate for their kids. I'm going off topic as
Not
as
really,
opposed to,
though.
but
Not really.
it's so hard. Parents feel like they don't have the language to show up at school properly and
Sure.
really be
Yep.
a good advocate for their kids. So it's very nice when the one who, like, very often it's mom doing all of the legwork, and then but when dad shows up, it adds a different dynamic, and it's
Yeah.
just so wonderful to see the parents partner and learn how to partner.
Yeah,
So
I
that was
agree.
cool. So I
Yep.
do hope that we'll get in the next group, we'll see that happen as well.
Yeah.
The family will join as often as they can.
Awesome.
Yeah. Great. Well, thank you so much, Jennifer. And we'll meet up next week for more on where this is all going and maybe a little bit of my story. Thank you so much.
Sounds good, Allie.